This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. My guest is Mr. Martin Lumpkin, the newly elected president of the Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association. In a statement in one of the newspapers earlier this week and a couple of days ago, the headline was "Tutor calls for a restart of the wage talks with the CPO." It says that the newly elected president said the association is calling on the chief personnel officer to return to the bargaining table. He said he reminded the public that tutors' negotiations are carried out based on the external labor market survey and not in percentage points. We want to get inside some of what he said in that piece, but let's introduce him to the program and talk about the fact that this statement came out before what we understood was to have been his formal taking over of the position as president of Tutor. Mr. Lumpkin, thanks for coming on. Good to see you.
Hi. Good morning, Mr. Johnson, and good morning to the viewing and listening public. Thank you for having me on your program this morning. It is indeed an honor and pleasure to be on your program.
All right, thank you very much. So we were talking before we got on. We are from the same neck of the woods in the country, so that is an area of sort of commonality among us, between us.
Yes.
All right, so let me ask. So you had made this statement, and it comes out in the name of Tutor. But when we tried to go behind it on the day that it was published in the paper, we were told by the office that, well, you hadn't taken up your position yet, you hadn't been sworn in yet, or how you all do it in the business. But this came about on the basis of what you're meeting with other members of the executive, and you decided to come out early and put your stamp on the leadership of the organization. Is that it?
Okay, so at that particular time, the preliminary results were out, and the Elections Commission would have produced that preliminary results. The process allows for any candidate to request a recount or to request an investigation into any irregularities. And so there was a request for recount, which took place on the Friday after, and then the Elections Commission would have published the final results and would have indicated that installation will be on Tuesday, the 1st of November. At that point in time, the media did reach out to me to ask, what are my vision? What are my intention in terms of the priorities when taking up office. And at this time, Tutor is engaged, waiting on word and engaging in the salary negotiations 2014 to 2017. And so I would have just echoed the sentiment of the negotiating team, and
you seem to have frozen up there. Let's try and work it out.
I do apologize. I had an incoming call on my
Okay.
phone.
All right.
So I apologize for that. Yeah, so as the incoming president, was the response.
So you made that response in that capacity. I want to get to some of what you say here. Well, probably we could do that now. In the piece, you say that the association is looking at closing the gap in the last trend line generated between 2008 and 2011, and the present trend covering the period 2011 to 2014. But you say that tutors' negotiations are based on what you call the external labor market survey and not in percentage terms. So that's a difference from some of the other representative organizations in the public sector?
Yeah, yes, it is. And the tutor would have negotiated in the past in terms of salary negotiations on a percentage increase. In roughly 2000, 98 to 2000, we would have had the job evaluation, and we would have had the delinking of the teaching service from the public service. And within that period, there was the recognition that the methodology to which tutor would engage negotiations with the chief personnel officer would change, and there would be a scientific methodology based upon the external labor market, jobs that are evaluated and scored in terms of their responsibilities, qualifications, duties, and so forth, and scored with the same jobs in the teaching service would be utilized. So both parties had to agree to which jobs they would the salary for that period for the jobs, and which period, within that period, the jobs that they would use. And then when it's agreed, then there would be created a trend line, a line which would show where the salaries of teachers should be for that period. And so this methodology scientifically would compare and give us data as to where teachers' salaries should be based upon the external market, and not just negotiating based on, I want to give you a 2% increase, a 5%, and so forth. So we have been utilizing that methodology since that period, and the period that we are negotiating is no different. Both parties would have agreed to utilizing the external labor market survey and not utilize percentage increase.
So 4% in this context means nothing to you all?
At this point in time, no. We are looking at the closing the gap from the last period we would have settled to the period that is being negotiated. We do say, though, that it can be worked out eventually as a percentage, but we are saying let us look at the data that has been agreed upon and settled upon, and let us close that gap and look at the closure of the gap instead of raw percentage increase.
And so the last period, you're working in a situation in 2022 with negotiations which dealt with the period 2011 to 2014.
Yes, and teachers have not had an increase in salary since that period. We would have settled within the period 11 to 14. And so let me correct what I said earlier about 14 to 17, because we have not reached that period in terms of negotiations. And the CPO has tried to give us a percentage increase for that period. Tutors have been saying that let us deal with the first period that is before us, and then we can talk about the second period when that is the first period is settled. So yes, teachers are crying out, and I mean, addition to not having an increase in salary at that period is also the rising cost of living, the increase in fuel, and many other things that would affect our teachers, that are affecting our teachers presently.
So essentially, your starting position is to address the issue 2014 to 2017. Will that be correct?
Yes. That should be in the past we would have looked at one period at a time, and so we are focused on that period first to begin with. So yes, we want to settle that period first to begin with.
And you say here you can't quote a figure, but you say it's roughly about $5,000 more for a teacher. Teacher one in that case, and that's the lowest round of the ladder. And that's period a primary school, and 6,000 or more for a teacher three. So teacher three is in secondary school. One imagines.
Again, let me apologize again.
Yes, all right.
An incoming call.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I have not been in contact with the negotiating team to give an exact figure. Those are approximate figures that I would have gotten. And so yeah, I can't give an exact figure, and that figure quoted will be the full closure of the gap between the last negotiating period and the one we're looking at. And tutor would have proposed to the CPO, let's start at 50% closure the gap, and we are willing to negotiate, the figures that will be best for both parties.
So at this point, is it the same? You've inherited the same negotiating team. Are you proposing? You proposing any changes, or is there any discussion about that, or are you going ahead with the team that has been getting it to this point?
I apologize, Mr. Jones. I'm getting a little technical difficulty here. I'm not hearing you too well.
Yeah, I was asking whether or not you,
yeah, I hear you now.
Yeah,
sorry about that.
You're going to stay with the negotiating team you inherited, or you have ideas about making changes, or is that inevitable that you would make changes?
The negotiating team comprises of the elected national officers as well as the appointed national officers. And the appointed national officers are our industrial relations officers, as well as the education research officer and members of the industrial relations committee. So the incoming officers we have the advantage of persons who were there before. And so we don't have the power to change the negotiating team as such. We can, if we feel there are persons who are skilled in that area, we can co-opt them into the negotiating team. But it is always a team effort, and it's always by consensus that we will include anyone else. We try to have the best team possible when it comes to the salary negotiations. And I must say, there are non-salary items that would have been proposed as well. And so we are focusing right now on the salary negotiations, but will also be negotiating for non-salary items as well.
Because you see here, there's a significant gap between the two. You're talking about the two periods between 2011 to 2014 and then 2014 to 2017. And then between then and now, where you are. So there's a wide gulf between where you should be and where you are, correct?
Correct, yes. So the last period we settled was 2008 to 11. So we're looking at 11 to 14 at this period. So there is a wide gap between those two periods. And then even to the present situation right now. Now, what we have to also keep in mind is that we use salaries that are current. And if we cannot get salaries that are current, we do aging of the data, which we would have done for the period 11 to 14. And so we can extrapolate and use mathematical calculations to see where it should be. But I mean, those are just extrapolations and educated guesses that we're using. But we have a fair idea in our minds that where we should be presently. So if we fast forward and we settle the outstanding negotiations and look at the period 20 to 23 as to where teacher salaries are now, it is a widening gap.
So where is tutor in relation to the rest of the trade union grouping that is part of or the machinery that is there to address this matter with the CPO, because we're talking organizations representing workers in the state sector. Where's tutor in that mix?
So unions representing different sectors, public sector workers, tutor included, would negotiate singly with the CPO. There's no grouping as such. Sometimes unions and associations may trade and have discussions in terms of common areas. But when we face the CPO, we face, so tutor will go into a particular statutory date and meet with the CPO and have discussions based upon the teaching service and where the negotiations are likely to go forward and be brokered and negotiated. So it's a single negotiations, but the trade unions are always in contact and always assisting each other in terms of common areas that we would would like to see.
And then independent or individual units take different kinds of actions such that your predecessor leadership was advocating this strategy of what you all call rest and reflection. That has been stopped because the government went to industrial court to file a complaint about it. So that is not a strategy that you all will have available, correct?
No, not at this time. We at TUTA are law-abiding, and we will follow the law. And as you pointed out, there is an injunction presently in place. We meet in the industrial court on Friday, the 4th of November, for a review of the injunction. But in terms of rest and reflect, we are not engaged in that, and there's no need for that because of the injunction, and we don't foresee it in the near future.
All right, we need to take a break, and we'll come back in a moment. This is 10 questions. My guest is Mr. Martin Lumpkin, the incoming president of the Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association. We'll be back in a moment. Stay with us.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered.
The conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN Content Capital.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
Welcome back to the program. My guest is Mr. Martin Lumpkin, the newly elected president of the Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association. Let me quote from this piece that was in the paper. We've been drawing from that for a discussion thus far. He reiterates the position of the negotiating team that TUTA would not accept the government's 4% wage offer and was willing to meet with the CPO and his team to recommence negotiations and bargain for a better wage increase for teachers. TUTA is willing to negotiate closure of the gap, and we would have put forward a 50% closure of the gap and are willing to negotiate from there. We are mindful of the economic situation, but we are also mindful of the effect it is having on our teachers, as well as teachers deserve to have the gap closed at a significant position so they can be comfortable economically. So you're not talking 4%, you're talking about something that will meet the gap between where you are now, which is based on the situation as it was in 2011, 2014, to where we are now in 2022.
as you quoted rightly, we are willing to negotiate and come around the table. I want to say though, Mr. Johnson, that I understand that tutor would have gotten some correspondence and will be making a statement very shortly. I am not authorized to make any statement at this point in terms of the negotiation. So at the point when it is necessary, tutor will make a statement to its membership concerning the salary negotiations and going forward.
So you've gotten some communication from the CPO's office?
From I believe the industrial court.
From the industrial court.
Yeah. So it will be revealed shortly. I am not authorized at this point to reveal the contents of it, but the officers presently in office will make a statement shortly to the membership. But continuing on your question, yes, that methodology of the external labor market survey has been the methodology used in the past, and we still want that methodology to be utilized. Our teachers are crying out, as with other citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, but our teachers have been reaching out to us and letting us know the effects of the economy right now on their personal financial situations. Some of our teachers are sole breadwinners, single family person, and even those who have support otherwise are still being affected by the rising cost of living and other associated financial and economic situations.
Is it useful to ask what might be some of the other high agenda items that you want to address and as you assume this position in the organization, or is the question of better wages and living conditions as they can be provided in these negotiations so all-consuming that you want to get through that first before you talk about what else are the challenges that you face and the things that you want to do, your administration wants to get done?
Okay, thank you. So yes, salary negotiations is paramount at this time because of the situation thus far. Our non-salary items as well would be addressed, and the CPO has always taken the time to remind us that even those items have financial costs to the government, and so within the context of their budget and their limits, we want to settle in the salary part first, and then its non-salary will come after based upon what the government can afford and what is budgeted to them. But external to and apart from the salary negotiations, there are issues that teachers face, some outstanding for a lengthy period. We are talking about, in terms of upgrades, teachers are waiting to be upgraded from one position to another. We're speaking about, in terms of increments, because teachers are not in the correct incremental point. And even if they are moved to the correct incremental point, there's the outstanding arrears from the being at the wrong incremental point for a number of years. Teachers and administrators have issues of health and safety within schools. And as you're aware, a number of weeks ago, there was an unfortunate accident at San Juan North Secondary School. And teachers face issues like that because I would like to always point out to the general public and to the powers that be that the teaching conditions of teachers are the learning conditions of our students. And so the conditions that teachers would face are also what students face as well. And unfortunately, we had that incident. It could have happened to a teacher. Thank God. And I'm really sorry. And I sorry that the student had to go through such trauma. Teachers and administrators, tutor never likes to see an incident like that. And so in that vein, we're always reaching out to the Ministry of Education to ensure that our schools are complies to a level of health and safety. And there are other, for example, in Tobago, we know there are issues of contract teachers, and we will reach out to the Division of Education to get updates and to see how best we can regularize those issues. So those are some of the burning issues that we have within our teaching service that we need to address as soon as possible with the relevant stakeholders and institutions that are responsible for these
All right,
issues.
the man to whom the person to whom I report in this organization, his name is Lee Singh, his first name is Darren. He tells me to use his name because he wants to find out from you, from Tutor, what is the move ahead on addressing issues that he thinks are important to be brought into the education system in a more effective way. He's talking about language skills, language learning, and what he says is operating in other parts of the world where he knows he has relatives who are in the school system. They're the coding system for education. He wants to know to the extent to which Tutor is in that league, in that game, with proposing and promoting and trying to execute those avenues for better education of our children.
Okay, so Tutor has always been in the promotion of good education, and actually in our constitution it's to promote the cause of education in all aspects. Our first vice president is responsible for professional development as well as educational issues. And I know that the incoming first vice president, along with our outgoing first vice president, will be collaborating and will ensure that development courses are easily accessible. If we cannot provide it, at least we can point in the direction to which teachers can access these upgrade courses. But Tutor has always had the promotion of education as well as professional development at its core. It's been a lot of people see Tutor in terms of an industrial relations, like because of the number of issues that have been arising over the last years in terms of in our industrial relations, like. But the cause of education is paramount to Tutor, and the improvement of professional development and the delivery of the curriculum will always be at the forefront of Tutor. As a professional organization, as a teachers union, we will always be seeking the best interests and the improvement of the education system. So I can tell you at this time, with the first vice president incoming and the outgoing first vice president, we will be seeking an improvement in professional development and educational issues and addressing educational issues.
What does that mean in real terms? Seeking an improvement in educational development and development issues.
Okay, so there are a number of issues, like, for example, I know the present first vice president, and he's outgoing because he's statute barred, would have placed a focus on special education. And recently he also had a forum on e-testing, and would always address professional development courses within the schools to help with workshops. So Tutor will avail itself of any institution that are willing, any institutions, that are willing to partner with us. We would have had partnerships with Mount St. Vincent University in terms of a master's degree. That has come to an end, but we will seek to always have development courses. And so Tutor, during the
I think we lost you there again. Well, okay. I'm afraid we'll have to.
in terms of online teaching, and now where there is talk of continued use of the online approach. These are courses that will assist our teachers.
All right, we want to thank you very much. We apologize to our viewers for the challenges with the transmission, but thank you very much, Mr. Martin Lumpkin, President now of the Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association. This has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
WESN.
Secret Ad Girls IC School presents Wonderland. A bazaar with a difference.
Saturday, November 5th, St. John's Ambulance Headquarters, Ryson Road, Port of Spain, 12 noon to 6 p.m. Many exciting stalls and much more. Walk along Adult Street and win many prizes from adult punch board, hoopla, tin pan alley, and much more. Don't miss the many giveaways and surprises for all kids. Kids, are you ready for face painting, sweet parang, DJ music, Santa workshop, kids corner, dunk tank, wheel of fortune, and so much more? Saturday, November 5th, St. John's Ambulance Headquarters, Ryson Road, Port of Spain, comes alive, 12 noon to 6 p.m.
Wonderland.
Come and experience a West Palm Christmas, an all-inclusive affair featuring your favorite Christmas delicacies: baked ham, turkey, homemade hops, pastel, roast chicken, Trini black cake, sponge cake, chocolate cake, cinnamon plantains, chow chow, sorrel, and